So where do we go now? Because obviously you've got a conflict brewing, and I don't even know if you would call it a proxy war, because it seems like you've got both sides who've chosen Syria as its theater. That's Israel and Iran. But you also have Turkey, and they have been attacking the Kurds and using chemical weapons. So, you know, Turkey is supposed to be an ally of ours. Is there a relationship between Israel and the Kurds? Oh, mercy. Growing tensions between Iran and Israel finally resulted in one of the most serious confrontations to date between the two nations. According to Israeli officials, on Saturday, an Iranian drone took off from Syria, entered into Israeli territory where it was shot down by an Israeli attack helicopter. Israel then dispatched fighter jets to a Syrian military base where one was shot down by the Syrian army. The back and forth continued when Israel responded with a much larger attack in Syria, striking 12 targets, 4 of which reportedly operated by Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu had some strong words following the exchange.
I've been warning for some time about the dangers of Iran's military entrenchment in Syria. Israel holds Iran and its Syrian host responsible for today's aggression. We will continue to do whatever is necessary to protect our sovereignty and our security.
So with the fight winding down against ISIS in the region, is it possible that a new war may emerge between Iran and Israel in Syria? Joining me now, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Fox News contributor, John Bolton. Welcome back, Ambassador.
Glad to be with you.
So what does this exchange and Israel's response tell you?
Well, I think it's very serious. I think the Iranian presence in Syria is gravely threatening to Israel, but the reconfiguration of power in the Middle East after the essential defeat of the ISIS caliphate, eliminating its territory, really does threaten conflict widening now between the Iranian coalition or alliance and the Saudi-led Sunni coalition, not to mention against Israel. And the reason we're worried about an Iranian presence in Syria is precisely now because after the defeat of the ISIS caliphate, Iran has extended control from its own territory through Iraq, linking up with the Assad regime in Syria, and then the Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon. This is a very, very serious negative development.
So what do we have to do? What is an appropriate response from this country on Israel's behalf?
Well, I think...
I mean, we don't want to get drawn into an unnecessary conflict over there. That seems like it could be very problematic.
Yeah, well, of course, the key word is unnecessary. I mean, I think you have to look at what Iran is doing here in terms of conventional weapons deployment and its alliance with Syria and its de facto alliance with Russia, which is the other outside country propping Syria up, in the context of its development of long-range ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. This is a dramatic projection of Iranian power. And as I say, it's a consequence, number one, of the terrible 2015 nuclear deal from the Obama administration in Iran and the strategy we pursued in both of the last 2 administrations in defeating the caliphate. Iran has taken advantage of it. We've watched it happen.
Yeah, and that is no surprise. I mean, they have wanted hegemony in the region for quite some time, and they have essentially been running 3 countries, including their own. So where do we go now? Because obviously you've got a conflict brewing, and I don't even know if you would call it a proxy war, because it seems like you've got both sides who've chosen Syria as its theater. That's Israel and Iran. But you also have Turkey, and they have been attacking the Kurds and using chemical weapons. So, you know, Turkey is supposed to be an ally of ours. Is there a relationship between Israel and the Kurds?
Well, there certainly is in different contexts. You know, this is obviously far from a two-sided war. It's sort of like three-dimensional Chinese checkers. There are more sides than you can count. I think the main strategic issue here is the dramatic projection of Iranian strength in the wake of the defeat of ISIS. I think you've got to look at the Iranian threat from a macro level and all the way from nuclear weapons right down to their air defense capabilities across the region. The main threat here, there are multiple threats to peace and security in the Middle East. The main threat is Iran. I think the president needs to take on the Iran nuclear agreement and abrogate it, and I think we need to be talking, as I hope Secretary of State Tillerson is during his current trip to the Middle East, about how to unite the Arab states to deal with the Iranian threat.
And there's a little bit of tension today brewing between Israel and the United States. What do you think the president is saying to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at this point?
Well, I think they're undoubtedly consulting across a range of issues. The subject of possibly annexing Israeli settlements on the West Bank into Israel proper is something that Israel's looked at for a long time. It was Netanyahu's position a long time ago. I think the White House is worried about its peace plan and the effect on that. I tell you, events are moving very fast in the Middle East, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there are further developments here. This is a very volatile situation.
All right. And it's been a long time coming. Ambassador, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up this